because you know what? We have to have something all throughout time and history to say, I need to get back home. I like working. I like being productive. I like those results and that fruit because it gives me honor and esteem. But I need something warm and soft when I get back home. You know, it's just so that's a natural thing. But we want sex with the honor. So even if sex is there, but it doesn't come with the honor, it's not the same. So honor is a super need. So it's a different class. It's like this one, and then it's like the main lead singer and the Rockettes over here, or so sex, and then third is companionship, camaraderie. We want friends too, you know.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Kickin It podcast. Before we start this episode, I just want to go over a concept really quick with you all that I would like to keep at the forefront of your mind while you watch this podcast. And that is, too often times that I hear from certain people that they want to eliminate suffering from the world. And I know what they mean, that they wish people would no longer starve and no longer hurt. But the problem with that is everybody at one point or another is going to starve in one way, shape, or form, whether it's through food, emotional needs, physical needs, or community needs. And that suffering is something that every single one of us are going to experience over and over and over again in our life. But I think that people have that backwards, that suffering is part of human life, and it's not so much the event that is going on so much as it is your personal relationship to that event. Suffering is what builds human character, because all suffering is a human experience of whatever is going on around you and your processing of that experience. Without suffering, we don't have growth. Without suffering, we don't have any context. So to eliminate suffering is to eliminate human growth and then the eventual demise of our entire species and race. Rather than eliminating suffering from the world, I think a much better concept would be to increase people's ability to endure suffering and then heal from that suffering, from that traumatic event. Now, I don't like seeing people get hurt. It makes me very uncomfortable. But I can't ignore the fact that getting hurt is something that will happen to each and every single one of us. You, me, and everyone else included. And because it is something that we cannot avoid, rather than eliminate it, we need to strive to build a better relationship with the suffering in our lives. I would like for you all to keep this concept in mind as we go into this following conversation, where we go deep into the topics of the human spirit. Thank you all for watching this episode. To support it, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment any thoughts you may have below. All of this helps the YouTube algorithm to promote conversations like this one, which I feel are very important. And also, don't forget to stop by the store, which can be found in the description below, to pick up a gift for that fighter in your life. This is Rex, and this is the Kickin It podcast. Thank you.
How you doing, brother?
Doing great, man.
Ask Andre, the one and only. All right, man. So I'm just gonna dive right into it. How did we get here in this society where we have a whole entire online movement of people who are trying to blame every single one of their problems on men?
How did we get here? Wow. Well, I'm a person who, first off, so good to be here, man. And I love just the organic conversations we've had, you know, and so this is great to be here to take it, you know, to the people, I guess, you know. And for me, I always like to start at the beginning, and my worldview is a biblical one. So I always look at where did things start with man and women, and if we had these same problems right at the beginning. It's your fault. It's your fault. Eve said it was Adam. Adam said it was Eve. They both blamed on the serpent, right? We've had this problem from the beginning, and it's so easy to do as human beings, right? Being personally accountable, looking within, dealing with your stuff, it takes a lift, right? It's so easy to just say that person. And the hard part is there's always validity to it, because there's always some some faults on both sides. So you could always point to something to the other side and actually be true that there are things that they could do differently. But the tough part is, can you own your own part, and can you look beyond their challenges, have some empathy, and actually be able to understand why they may be having those challenges and be a part of that change and that solution.
So being that this has actually been going on for the last 20,000 years.
Right.
Is the narrative that we have a problem as a society, is that accurate then? Because if something's been going on since the dawn of human civilization, and yet we've still progressed to where we are today, does that actually mean we have a problem, or are we just continuing to run the same programming that has worked / not worked for so long?
Yeah, great question. For me, it was working at some point until we had that first problem, again, from my worldview. And what I believe has happened is family relationships, they're the building block of everything, right? Everything starts with a couple, it starts with the offspring they have, and then from there, you start to have schools, church, community, political, government, right? But family is the fundamental building block. So when that unit is flawed, and I believe to your point, the matrix, however you like to look at it, has been attacking us for the longest, and understanding that if you get that part wrong, and if they can get us in a place where we are consistently toxic, not able to relate to one another, then everything else is going to topple with it. If the foundations are broken, what will people be able to do? Even people who have good intentions and want to do the right thing, if they don't have the right foundations, their building is on shaky ground.
And what is that foundation?
Well, for me, it's family. It's family, and it's faith as well for me. But just staying on the relationship side of things, it's women having their needs met, it's men having their needs met, and both sides feeling really compelled to want to meet each other's needs and to want to race each other to the top. Instead, we have the reverse now. Everyone is racing each other to the bottom, trying to be selfish. Let me get mine before you do the wrong thing to me. Let me just blame things on you. Let me not be empathetic to what your needs are. And let me just focus on myself and somehow think that that's going to be sustainable.
I mean, the mentality that persists with that type of perspective is, no one's going to take care of me, so I have to take care of me, and that's typically the attitude that they're functioning from. Because the way that I interact with a lot of disillusioned people, disenfranchised people on the internet, which is always a great place to interact with people, is that the system has screwed us so badly that I can't rely on other people.
Yeah.
I can't rely on this system. I can't rely on this or that or the other. And the system could be either corporate America or the government or whatever. And the disillusion is felt on both sides of the aisle.
That's right.
How can with that perspective, how could they have not arrived at this, I need to take care of mine and get mine first mentality? And tell me why that is a bad thing.
I think a lot of these things would happen organically if we had parents who taught us the right things, if we had an environment and a community that taught us the right things. And all it takes is one generation to get off stride, and then you break that cycle of people understanding what life really is about. And for me, life is about community, it's about family, it's about being able to relate to one another. We are made to be creatures that aren't just off on their own, right? This is why, unless someone has some sort of psychological issue or some breakdown or some place where they never got healed, we naturally want to be around people. That's the default mechanism. And to want to be around people is to also want to work with people and to know that you are better with others doing things collaboratively, cooperatively. That's how we're wired. But it gets to a point where people start to feel like the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So then they say, well, let me do this on my own. And then they go through that cycle for however long, and then they get to a place, especially when they get older in life, and realize, man, I'm lonely. This kind of sucks. I've killed the world here. I've slayed all these dragons. I make all this money, but I'm still very lonely. I still feel very hollow. I don't have someone to leave this on, this legacy to, and it's really sad. And so I think we have to get back to a framework from my mindset of what true development in humanity is, and that's going from being dependent when you're born through childhood, working into independence, which everybody thinks that's the goal. You know, all these women, I'm an independent woman. That's great. You're not at the level you could be, which is interdependent. And interdependent requires a different level. That means I'm good by myself, but I'm great with other people. And and part of my being good by myself is I've learned how to not only just like take care of myself and be an adult, because really that's what we're talking about most of the time, is being an adult, but I'm really good at being an adult enough to make room for other people and their imperfections and their shortcomings, and to know how to work with other people, right? And to shore them up and to help them to be better than they would be by themselves. And so not that they're not whole by themselves, but it should be two wholes coming together to be in one person. So like 1 times 1. And then that new one, that combined one, is better than the individual one, because now you have two thoughts. You have, if someone is sick, you have the other person who can pick them up. If one person is down financially, the other one can pick them up. That's what it's supposed to be. But it only works when you have people who are willing to be vulnerable, people who are willing to be humble, people who have a servant sort of mindset, which is everything this world teaches you not to do.
You say that, yet when you look at divorce rates in America, it is over 50%. It's actually coming close to 55, 60%.
Yeah.
So what's going on there where, as you said, we're supposed to learn to be interdependent, yet the foundation, the function of what creates a strong society from your perspective is not holding together. What's going on here?
Yeah, there's a disconnect, because we want all of the benefits, right? We love that feeling of being in love. We love the feeling of having people do things for us. That's great, right? But we forget that it's better to give than to receive. And if you really can give in a way where you're safe to give and know that that's going to come back to you and that person is going to want to race you again to the top, then that's an even better feeling, right? And so giving becomes contagious, it becomes advantageous, and it becomes something that really is as a natural part of you. So I look at it like this: we have a lot of scarcity mentalities, right? And that means that everything people feel like that's good, there's only a little bit of it. So I better do what I can do and get mine while I can get it, because it's going to be scarce. So they have a scarcity mentality with thinking that people are going to do right by them and do well by them. And I don't believe it's that there aren't people who would do it, but it becomes contagious to then have everyone be self-centered. And then it's almost like a zombie syndrome, right? As you become that, or you run into one narcissist or one person who sucks you dry, then you start to pull back. And then you want to be vulnerable. Then you don't want to put yourself out there. And then sometimes hurt people then create new hurt people who create new hurt people who create new hurt people. And then you look up and everyone's like, I'm good on this. There's just too many broken and hurt people out there, but they're not recognizing it's the brokenness. It's not that everyone is just a bad person, but they've gone through some bad things, and unfortunately they weren't intentional on healing those things. And learning too, because that's the big part of it.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here then, where we have a bunch of hurt people who hurt people? Because I don't imagine that you're not familiar with the phrase of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you spend time with good people, you pick up good habits. If you spend time with bad people, pick up bad habits. How do you help the bad people if you don't hang around them because they're bad for you, and then they continue to hang out with bad people? Like it almost seems like the advice that helps people succeed is the same exact advice that doesn't help the people who need it the most. Because I recognize that in my circle, there are certain people that I don't want around me.
Right.
But then like the trade-off there is, if I don't help this person, how do they grow?
Yep.
So what has to happen there?
No, I appreciate you sharing that, and I think that's why we're talking, right? Because we can feel that like energy, right? Even if you come from different perspectives, there's respect, there's ability to learn. So I feel like I can learn from anyone, good, bad, whatever, so there's always something. And then I have the chance to hopefully pour in and share as well. I really think it comes down to the fact that we don't have to depend on just information through our direct relationships. I mean, how are we talking right now? We have mobile tools, we have YouTube, we have TikTok, we all have all these things, right? So we can get access to information from a lot of different places. I think the biggest thing is just the wherewithal to know to be better requires intentionality. It first means you have to get over your past hurt and pain, and it wasn't your fault that those things happened to you, but you are accountable for the fact that you let that be your storyline for 5, 10, 15 years going, right? You didn't do something about it, but mostly it's because people don't think about the brain and the heart being very sensitive organs, and you can't expect to play in sports at a high level with a nagging injury that you never dealt with, right? You're not going to be Michael Jordan and not have a person, a trainer take care of you and make sure you can perform at your highest level. Well, relationships require us to perform at a very high level to really enjoy them the way they're meant to be structured. But when we don't get healed, then we're hobbling through, and so then we're hurting the team that way. And then, ego says, well, why aren't you passing me the ball? I'm out here too. Well, you're playing on a kickstand, man. I've seen you miss 10 shots in a row. I think we're going a different direction, but people want the results. And so there's that. And then just the lack of knowledge. Like, people don't know what they don't know. And so they don't realize, like, wow, I never really learned about relationships. I never really learned what marriage is. I never really learned the 4 essential needs of a woman, 4 essential needs of a man, and why things don't work when people don't get them.
Could you go deeper into the 4 essential needs?
Yeah, so from my perspective, this is a universal thing, and different people have kind of maybe some areas of places where they might prioritize certain things, but across the board, fundamentally, there are core needs that men have and core needs that women have. I'll start with men first. Mm-hmm. The number one need of a man is honor. And, yes, my Asian brother, you get it, right? So, right, it's an essential part of your culture. It's deeply missing here in the Western culture. And when you say that word, I've been amazed. Probably 8 out of 10 people have different understandings, don't really know what it means, and are just kind of like, it's kind of like when I say that word, there's a little bit of a, I didn't expect you to say that. And what do you mean by it? Which already tells you, if most people don't really know what it is, are people really giving that to men as an example? And this is our number one need. So you already can see a plague.
So what is honor?
Honor to me is simply someone sees you. They understand who you are at your core. They value you. They esteem you. They revere you. They don't think that you're perfect. It's nothing like that. But what they believe is that you have great intentions, you have great potential, and not just potential, you realize some of that potential, because I believe most women, part of their problem is that they don't look at men in terms of what they've already proven themselves to be. So that's how you can avoid, the jerks out here. Because if jerks show that they're very unselfish in a lot of other ways in life, and they treat their mom well, and they treat other people well, and they, some people can compartmentalize that, but most can't do that over time. So you want somebody who's going to be unselfish. Look and see if he's unselfish in what he does in his everyday life, right? That he's given his time and resources and money. And these are the sort of people that you can look up to, not necessarily the people that we honor and esteem, that we're taught by the Matrix. The Chris Brown era, right? You look good, you're tall, you have talent, you got swag, you got drip. I mean, that's cool, no knock, but that should be the icing, or maybe even the sprinkles on the cake. That's not the cake.
That's the end result.
That's the end result, because that's not gonna keep you secure as a woman. That's not gonna keep a guy from not cheating on you, from making sure financially you're taken care of, emotionally you're taken care of, spiritually taken care of. Those should be your number one essential things, and that's why I believe, like Asian cultures, African cultures, a lot of other cultures that haven't had the Western modern, mindset put on them, get it more, and they esteem the men who are really men of substance on the inside and servant leaders.
Okay, so that's honor.
That's honor. Long way around, but that's an important one, because I feel like people miss that, so I talk about that a lot.
So it sounds like, in your work, from your perspective, honor would be like radical acceptance of what is, of the being that's in front of you, accepting them, good parts, bad parts, potential, past, everything, taking all of that together and understanding that everything about that person is exactly how they are and being okay with it.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great way to summarize it. I would even say I take a lot in saying, to share the parts about even when they don't get it right, because that's always the pushback. Well, but they did this. Well, if you look at the body of work, is this a good dude? Period. Is this someone who you can ride with? So that's the shortest way. Can you really ride with this person? So that even when it's not perfect, you're like, you know what? I will ride with that person. Period. And I like to put it this way. Avatar. We got the new Avatar movie out. The first one, best line of the movie. I see you, Jake Sully. Right? She wasn't checking for him the whole time. She didn't like him, all this stuff. But over time, she was able to see his character, his valor, his deep care, his willingness to be sacrificial and put himself out there. And eventually, he won her over. And it's not because he all of a sudden became attractive. He was no more physically attractive. In fact, he wasn't even part of their species, but she could see who he was as a man on the inside so much that it changed everything. And now she's ready to die for this dude and will kill anybody. That's honor.
All right. So what are the other three?
So the other three, well, we're men. This is not hard. Sex. I mean, it's it's a fundamental part of who we are. And it's done in part because, we have to have something all throughout time and history to say, I need to get back home. I like working. I like being productive. I like those results and that fruit because it gives me honor and esteem. But I need something warm and soft when I get back home, It's just, so that's a natural thing. But we want sex with the honor. Mm-hmm. So even if sex is there, but it doesn't come with the honor, it's not the same. So honor is the super need. So it's a different class. It's like this one, and then it's like the main lead singer and the Rockettes over here, or So sex, and then third is companionship, camaraderie. We want friends too. That's important to us. We need women who can come into our world. The things that we like and are important to us have to be the same level, but they care enough about us to want to be a part of that, to allow us to feel safe and share in our world, to go into the game with us sometimes, and even if they, learning about the sport or whatever it might be, just being able to know that, on some level is kind of your best friend. You have your male friends, but you want to be able to not be like so compartmentalized where you can only talk to your guys about things. You need to be able to talk to your partner that way too. And then the last one is security. Now for men, that means loyalty. That means you're going to protect my secrets. You're not going to put me on blast to everybody. I'm not going to be hearing about your girlfriends talking about our business. And it means that, like, for us, the ultimate thing is you cannot step out there with some other guy, because that's right. We're tough and all this kind of stuff. We don't. No. That just. And so it's just feeling like. Also, it's protecting our peace. We talk about women needing security. We need to feel secure that women are going to make sure that we have a peaceful household, that they're going to really protect us as leaders in that, hey, if we make some mistakes, it's not going to just be like, oh, okay, we'll forget it. I'm not going to be able to ride with you anymore. I'm not going to honor you, and I'm going to throw you under the bus to other people. Like, we need to be able to feel like you have our backs that way, and then that gives us that peace, that security, and allows us to feel that much more energized to put it on the line.
So honor, sex, companionship, and security.
Yes, sir.
And you're speaking strictly from the man's significant other.
Yes.
At this point.
Yes. So these are essential needs that a woman would provide, like a wife would provide a husband.
So 2023, can a gay couple get that from their significant other?
Yeah, I believe that a lot of, I think, so the interesting thing is, I come from, again, a Judeo-Christian worldview, and so I speak about things from that perspective, but I believe a lot of these things are human nature things. And so it's interesting, even as people kind of deviate, have their own variations of doing things with respect to relationships, they still come back to a lot of the same principles. And I just heard something recently, some lesbian women who were playing more of the male kind of historical role and more of the provider, protector, and their partner, less providing those sort of things. They felt like they were experiencing the same thing that a lot of men feel like they're experiencing with modern women, where they felt underappreciated, where they're like, man, you don't honor, you don't value me, you just take it for granted that I just pay for everything and I'm not asking for a lot, but it is so funny that even women with other women, are going through some of that.
That is really fascinating. Like the women had no idea what they were going through until they started dating another woman, and they're like, "Holy crap, I get it now."
Yeah.
So do we need to turn more women into lesbians and get that message out or
I don't know.
something?
Maybe they need to talk about it a little bit, because sometimes some things do come like easier for people to hear it from someone who looks like them, right? You know, it's just human reality. Yeah. Right. So then for women, really interesting dynamic. You think that men and women are so different, and we are, but these essential things, I feel like God made us to be exactly the same, but yin and yang, opposite. So it balances. So it's the same four needs. They're just in reverse. So number one need of a woman is security. And it just looks different for what that means to a woman versus a man, but it's the same essential need. So the super need for women is security. If you don't have security, you'll never get to sex, you'll never get to companionship, you'll never get to these other things, because a woman needs to feel secure. And there's many levels to security. That's emotionally secure. She needs to feel like, you're just a safe person, and that physically just being in your presence, she's not going to be, and then once she's with you, that you can provide physical security for her, right? Because if a guy can't do that, then it's kind of like, well, what are we really doing here, right? We know in this day and age, the financial part, everybody understands that in spades, right? So even if women are doing great financially, how many women are willing to be with a man who's financially unstable? It doesn't happen, right?
I've seen that play out, and those relationships never last, and they tend to be very superficial. Like when I was in my early 20s, my friend was dating this this millionaire woman who was in like her 50s, late 50s, and her thing was she would just run through another young guy for like 6 months, and every 6 months she just picks up a new one, another new one, another new one.
Wow.
And the 20-year-old part of my mind was like, oh, that is so cool. But now I look back on it, I'm like, she is extremely lonely. And as far as I'm aware, she is still doing that, and that was over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing: it's not sustainable, right? That's a Black Widow model. So anytime a woman is essentially leveraging what a man can give while not allowing him to be in this kind of posture of providing those true four essential needs, it's not going to last, because she's never going to honor him. Right? If he can't provide security, and he can't, protect her and those sort of things, that's not a man that a woman is going to honor. And the funny thing is, again, from my worldview, honor is more important than love. Love will come with honor, but if you don't honor a man, even if you love him, it won't really matter. You'll still step out on him. You'll still look for other solutions. And so we're wired differently. Like, men have to love wives sacrificially and as a servant leader, and not to say women can't not love their husband, but it's more important that they honor him and see him that way, and then the love just comes with it. But if you do love him and you don't honor him, it's gonna just drip drop until there's nothing there. And so these kind of women who love men who are just attractive and great sex and all that kind of stuff, it's real good for about 2.2 months, right? And then you're like, dude, are you gonna get a job, or what? Are you gonna get your life together? Because if they can't really revere them, and when I say look up, people not look up in some sort of I worship him way, but in a way where you're like, you know what, you impress me with who you are. I like to be in your presence. I like to learn from you. You learn some things from me too, but I see you as someone I value and esteem, and you have to have a leadership part to you, even if that's an edge that says, hey babe, we just can't do that right now. This just doesn't make sense. And I haven't heard anything from you that shows me that does. Even when women don't like it, they know they need that, and we need that too as men. It just comes differently. We need some grounding too.
Can a male-female relationship function if the female makes more money than the man, but the man isn't hurting for money either? Like, say a woman makes 150K and the male makes 75K.
Yep.
Can that relationship function?
That's a great question, because it really is not only just like a hypothetical, it is the position that many women are finding themselves in, because now, especially in the Black community, a lot of women have really elevated as far as promotions and careers and education. And many of them have taken the track of, hey, I'm gonna not worry about marriage or men or whatever else. I'm gonna get these degrees. I'm gonna level up.
I'm a strong, independent black woman that don't need no man.
All of that, right?
Yeah.
Until they look up, and I call it shot clock cheese, right? The shot clock is going down. Cheese meaning like you just got to get a shot up because you're like, man, I'm 34. I don't, and I want to have a kid and I want to be married. And you're talking geriatric pregnancy after 35, and then they're saying, okay, women are hypergamous, which means they always want men who are, right, same or above, or at least in the stratosphere. So if you've leveled up so much, now you push yourself into the top 10, top 5% of men, and now you're trying to compete against 23-year-old women, 27-year-old women, women who are gorgeous, women who have more time to have children, and women who maybe are not, their expectations are not as high, and they're more about, hey, if I can be with a great guy, I love being a family person. And a lot of these guys who are go-getters, they're looking for more of that than they're looking for their competitor. I think the whole thing of power couple is a woman's fantasy far more than it is a man's, because for a man, a lot of times, what's gonna come with that? Are we gonna have to argue about every single, right? And it's not that we want pushovers, right? But we want people who can complement us, not compete with us all the time.
If I was gonna marry someone like that, I'd marry my business partner.
right. And at one point I had a business partner and I was married, and so I felt like, man, I'm getting beat up, on all sides. And if you're a go-getter man, you want your home to be peaceful. You want it to sometimes just be more simple. And this whole just dynamic the Matrix has given us. This is the epitome when both of you all are leveled up to the hilt. Meanwhile, who actually knows how to make sure they have enough time to meet the other person's need, where the career isn't the first thing, and money, chasing money. Like, that's the ultimate Matrix paradigm, that money and quote unquote success is this financial, material, lifestyle type of stuff. And we look at the divorce rates, we look at how kids are struggling, we look at how we're reproducing broken families, and we're not understanding, because we stopped focusing on the things that should be essential and started focusing on other things that are nice to have, add-ons to our purpose, but not the purpose.
So chicken and egg question. What came first? The divorce rate or the sudden drop in values?
I think all of these things, it is chicken and egg, and they always just one brings off the next. So like I said, you have one generation where there's some carnage, some toxicity, some brokenness, where you don't have both figures in the household, or at least for sure neighborhood or other family people shoring that up. Then unless there's intentionality, more than likely that person is going to have things that are going to then probably be off. Now, sometimes people try to overcompensate, right? But if it's going to be healthy, you got to fix that. You have to get some counseling. You have to get some better understanding. And you can't come in with this, a mom felt like men aren't anything, and so they teach their daughter, you better be independent, you better get your degree because you don't want to be like me. And then they look up and they're, again, leveled up and age 38, 40, trying to find this perfect person and wondering why, where are all the good men? Well, you passed a lot of them by while some of your counterparts were engaged on graduation day in college, right? You passed a lot up when you were like, hey, I just want this athlete dude, or this dude who's 6'2" and whatever else. And the 5'9" guy who's just steady Eddie, he got pushed to the side. And so I'm just trying to help people to understand how we got here, and then people can make their own decisions. I'm not here to tell anybody, but I think we haven't done the processing, the triage, to know kind of how we've gone astray.
Gotcha. So it almost sounds like what I'm hearing from you right now is women shouldn't pursue their career. It almost sounds like that.
Almost this close.
But I know that's not what you're pushing.
You know that.
So what is it that you're pushing then?
Thank you for asking, because others will just presume.
Yeah, because I can already hear like if this ever ends up on Reddit, oh my God.
Yeah. This sexist guy.
The Andrew Tates are coming.
Right, here he comes. Right.
Yeah.
This is my piece. I'm about purpose above all else. Who are you? Why are you here on earth? What is your purpose? There are some individual aspects to that each person has something, but then there's some collective things that I believe that God kind of set up. Now with that, there's a lot of room, and what that looks like and how you do it and the timing and all that kind of thing, that's for you to figure out. But it can look, it's not necessarily what the matrix tells you, which is it has to be this or that. See, anytime they push you're empowered to have choices, but then they remove some choices from that secretly, something's off. So what I mean by that is, women, you can do all these amazing things, but you can't be a housewife. You can't be a stay-at-home mom. That's lame. There's something wrong with that. That should tell you that there's an agenda there. You should be able to do all of that. And maybe you're a stay-at-home mom for 4 years, or maybe you do whatever, but there should be esteem in that if that's where you feel your purpose is. Because we look at it with teachers and other nurturing career tracks. There's no respect or honor for that, because people don't understand one of the best things you can do is tee up that next generation. There's not much more value. If I am raising the next person who, comes up with something that saves the world, I've done my job in raising that person far more than chasing money or having this, career or status. So I'm a person who gives scholarships to women in STEM and engineering, computer science. I'm here for it. My daughter, my oldest daughter, she's a senior at Georgetown. I've raised her to believe if she felt led to be the president of the United States, I'm here for it, and I'm going to help her to get there. And literally, we were writing scholarship offers, applications, and all those things, saying that that's what she wanted to do. So if that's what you're called to do, there's no limit as far as I'm concerned, for women, for men, for anybody. And my life motto is never let them put you in a box until they put you in the box. Ooh. So until the day you die, don't let people box you in. You can be all these different things, and you don't have to just be what people expect. But that also means you don't have to just be these success, quote unquote success things only, and forget about important things like family and all that. So that's the perspective that I come from. And so it's not a either or. Mm-hmm. It's, you can be all of the above, but what I don't want to see is where you can't reasonably consider a path that can be honorable and used to be honorable and now is looked at as just being somebody's wife. Where's the glory in that? Well, you know what? If you're married to somebody and help them to build an empire and you work through that together, a lot, even in this current world paradigm, right?
Mm-hmm. So just to sum up, you're not against women chasing careers or doing amazing things in science, technology, engineering. What you are against is closing doors for women or for anyone to be honest.
Yeah. It's the closing of doors that's a problem, and it's the lack of esteem, because ultimately the door will be open, but they'll never choose it because they've been programmed to believe that there's no honor in that. That the only way, here's the funny thing, it's like, it's like they always talk about people who are abused. When someone gets abused, a lot of times they become abusers. So you tend to pick up the traits of the people who hurt you or did things, right? So in men, sometimes they weren't there for you. They were emotionally disattached, and they were just all about their job and all these things. So what are we seeing women become? They're literally, instead of trying to counterbalance it with more feminine energy, they're trying to bring more masculine energy.
They're becoming hurt men.
Yeah, they're becoming hurt men. Very bad versions of men who are bad to begin with,
That's really frightening, because if you take a hurt woman who's trying to be a man, and you take a hurt man who's been a man, and they're going to be, natural male energy leads to competition. Mm-hmm. There's no way in hell a woman's going to win that competition, because the man's just going to obliterate her every single way, because he has his entire life experience of being a man. And I'm not even just talking about physically, I'm just talking about like mentally, like it's crazy. Hurt male energy is destructive. Just look at Sandy Hook, look at mm-hmm. Columbine, look mm-hmm. at Virginia Tech, look at, like, those were all men who committed those. I don't know of a single mass shooting that was committed by a female.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
And based
That's
on
not their energy, right?
And based on what you're telling me is, there's might be a reality, if we continue down this path, that women shooters becomes a thing.
That's interesting.
And that frightens me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Oh
they
my
say
God.
there's nothing like a woman scorned, right? They can take it to the streets. They can be violent. They can kill men, but I think maybe the only difference is women are such connected creatures. That's who they're meant to be. Theirs is usually always tied to like a person. So I think men can be more disconnected and be mad at just like society as a whole, and then take it out on a lot of other people. I see more so if a woman would do it, she'd be like taking out his whole family or something like that if it turned into that, which is really dark in and of itself. But yeah, it's interesting how you phrase that. And I think when men fall away, I think this is another thing people don't understand, that true masculine energy is also nurturing, but it's you're a caretaker in the sense that you want to make sure everybody's good. Like as a protector, you don't just try to protect, just you want to, if you can, if there are other kids that aren't your kids, you naturally want to protect them, right? If you have to help, the Johnsons next door because they're going through it, you'll work a little harder to help them because they're good people, and you know that is true male energy, is servant leadership. And so these people who get broken and are just, they're usually not productive type men, right? And so they're frustrated by that because they're not able to do that. But then B, they walk away from that part of manhood that says we're supposed to not only produce and do enough for us, but we're supposed to be able to do enough for other people.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So so we kind of got off topic here because we started off on the 4 essential needs for men, and we got to women's. We covered the first one.
Yeah, let's knock those out. Let's finish that out.
All right.
So we talked about security being the number 1 need, the super need. Second need, again, going in reverse order, is camaraderie and companionship on the woman's side. So a woman can really feel close to you when you can have those conversations, right? Because they're, again, connected, relational type of beings. So being able to feel like, a man can kind of be their best friend, can go shopping with them, can be able to let them just let their hair down and be vulnerable and share things. They need that, they want that, and then that opens up doors to other things, right? So the next thing is sex. Women want and need sex too. It's just a lower priority compared to men, and they need to have these other things in place to really open that up. But you have a woman who's really opened up, she might want it more than men do, but a lot of men don't experience that because they don't know how to make a woman feel secure and to have that companionship and camaraderie part of it. And then the last one is honor, but for honor, really that word is being cherished. Feel like you're the most beautiful woman in the world, like there's no other woman ahead of you, that he would stop what he's doing for you ahead of all else, and there's no other woman that can come close to that. He's willing to, as a man, we want to help everybody and fix everyone's flat tire. But guess what? If your lady, she needs her flat tire, she's got to be way over here, and where's her man or where's somebody else that can help her? It's like that kind of feeling of it's just them. And then that's where also when you cherish them, then they feel more secure, right? Just as we talked about with the men, when you can make men's peace feel secure, then they feel more honored, right? They like all go together. So those are the 4 of each side. And I believe that if more people knew about these, concentrated on making sure people had them, especially knowing what that looked like for each person that they were with, and made that their focus, most people wouldn't cheat, most divorces wouldn't happen, like we would be good. But the problem is, like anything, we're human beings. When you don't get your needs met over a long period of time, you start to become selfish. You start to feel like, why is this worth it? Because it does require sacrifice. It does require, for you to, forsake other people, all these things. And if you're not getting your needs met on the other side, it's like any business deal, right? And that's basically what it is. Like, I'm not getting my side of the business, and so I'm going to check out. And hopefully people can figure it out sooner, talk about it, deal with it. But a lot of times they don't, and they don't even realize what's happening. And then they get to this place where it's just like they take extreme steps,
It's interesting as you were going through that list, what the thing that hit my mind is when you're describing that last one, honor, and what women seek, which is, having the men tell them, hey, you're beautiful, I'll take care of you, your tire goes flat, I'll fix it for you, you're the most beautiful woman in the world. You told me that was the 4th most important thing on the list. Yeah. But whenever you hear men try to attract a woman, that's what they lead with. So to my understanding right now, that is a flawed strategy to attract a woman, then, because they're attacking the 4th most important things out of the first one.
See, it's hard because some of these things are tied. So we talk about the first need being security. And a lot of a woman's security, whether or not they want to admit it or not, is knowing that other people find them physically attractive, right? That's why we have billion-dollar, makeup industry, hair, all these things, because I believe women are hardwired to
Instagram,
right?
Yeah.
And actually that's been I think a big detriment to relationships, because women get so much affirmation, right? Men who don't even know them affirming them, then they don't have a natural, they don't have a natural need to get that from one man. So then they're just like, well, I don't really need a man as much, because they're kind of getting it from the world. It's like eating snacks all day. You come home, you got a great cooked meal. You don't really want it. And I could say the same is reversed for men in pornography, right? You should want to go home and take care of your wife so you can make sure that you can get that home cooked meal. But if you're snacking, then again, the Matrix is great at knowing what our needs are, way more than we do, supplying it in artificial and unhealthy and unsustainable ways, and then we're off. So these things were, like, I feel built in to make us want and need each other, and that's why so much now we're like, I don't need a man, I don't need a woman, except for, you're still hooking up with people, you're still getting affirmation on Instagram, you're still, whatever for men, you're still going to strip club, right? So you're just getting it in the cheap route, as opposed to, grandparents and forefathers. Authentically, yeah.
So on that topic, I came across this idea about a week and a half ago, and I definitely want to get your perspective. Social media is to women what video games are to men.
Interesting. Let me hear more about that. Yeah, tell me your theory there.
What is it that men desire? We desire sense of adventure. We desire problem solving, like building, world building, like exploration. Where scientists, engineers, we crave riding that horse into battle and slaying the enemies, right? And fields covered in blood. The reality is horrifying, but we crave that sense of danger, because 200,000 years ago, that was the reality. We rode into battle to kill animals to feed our village, and to wipe out their local clan before they wipe us out. That's what we crave. We're not getting that in this day and age.
Yeah.
But where can you get a simulation of that? Video games. So so that feeds the male ego of, hey, like with a push of a button, I could be on another planet slaying aliens with lasers. Yeah. Like, that tickles me right over here. Yeah. But when you look at females, yes, there are female gamers, but they don't take it nowhere near as seriously. For example, if we look at professional gamers, 95% of them are men, and the number one StarCraft female player is a trans.
Wow.
So, still,
right.
Right. And then when we look at social media, it's a chance. Men have social media too, but and if your post doesn't get 1,000 likes, does it ruin your day?
Right.
Versus, you take a average 21-year-old woman on the streets. She's a 7 out of 10 in looks. If she posts herself in a bikini, if that picture does not get 1,000 likes by the end of the day, she's going to feel some kind of way about it. Yes, there are exceptions to the rule. Okay, just leave me alone.
We're generalizing.
Yeah, we're generalizing here. But so while men use hey, I completed Halo 4 in 4 hours, I got 27 kills in Call of Duty. That's their way of scorekeeping. The women use social media, the like count, the comment section, the notifications, the DMs.
Yeah.
That's their way of scorekeeping for amongst them. I'm higher than this woman because I have 200,000 subscribers. She has 100,000. Therefore, I've beaten her. I'm better than this guy because I shot him on stage 4 before he could shoot me. So social media and video games has allowed us to artificialize our biological needs, our evolutionary needs.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
That's something I've been thinking about. I don't know if it's true or not.
I think you're spot on, man.
I want to run it by some sociologists and get their opinions.
Yeah, I see no flaws in that chain of reasoning, because at the end of the day, I like to look at these things from a psychological level. To your point, there's some essential psychological things that are built in, like you can't get around it. And when you can find a way to artificially feed that, and I say artificially, well, when you can give someone the opportunity to feed it in a way far more than they're getting it the real way they're wired to get it, then yeah, it's gonna take away, it's gonna harm, and then you convince them that there's more reward in that than the real world. Then you have a bunch of guys who are like deadbeats still in their mom's basement playing games, because in their world they're performing, they're getting results. We're meant to be producers, right? They are in a fake world, and let's face it, as men, we'll take the shortcut if it's there, and if no one really teaches us the honor and valor of working hard for things. And we know we're in the microwave age, right? So if I can get sex easy without having to level myself up and have a job and have my act together, where back in the day, you weren't having sex with somebody unless you were going to marry them, and their dad wasn't going to let you marry them unless you showed yourself to be a worthy guy. Well, nowadays, okay, let me learn some pickup lines, get in the gym a little bit, maybe that's the only work you might do, and then be able to, knock it down, and then I don't really have to level up, and then I can get the other kind of masculine things through video games. So women accommodation, I think, is, to your point, social media is a big part of it. It's kind of like the sisterhood affirmation, and so hearing from other women, you're gorgeous, you're all that, and then just being able to go out with the ladies. You got toys in the drawer, and then you also have pets. So women are naturally nurturing. You don't have to teach little girls to love dolls and to be nurturing and want to. So now, I lived in Miami, man. It was like dog heaven, because all the women who would have been married in the past are not now, still have that nurturing itch. And so now their dog becomes that outlet for that sort of thing, right?
That's kind of tragic. I've never heard of dog ownership being so tragic in my life.
Nothing wrong with it.
It's nothing wrong with it. It's just the result of how it happened.
Yeah, and to what end, right? If it's where you forsake other things, and that becomes like, and again, people can choose, that's for them. But I feel like a lot of these folks find out the hard way when they reach 45, when they reach 50, like, darn, I really wish I, had kids to be looking after now, that I wish I had this partner, and a lot of women who got all that attention early on, and then they get later in life and they don't get that attention the same way. Now, you kind of, you don't like the game anymore, right? You like the game when you were winning, so to speak, but then later on, now when you come on this other side, and we have different cycles. Men, because we have to earn our value by working and all these things, except for the few that are, blessed genetically, super good looking, tall, fit, whatever. But most of us have to work our way up to even be seen out there. And so that takes a while. And especially nowadays where we're expecting people to be making six figures, doing all this other stuff.
The 666.
Right. 6 feet tall, 6 figures, six pack. And in Miami, you also talk about money, mouthpiece, and muscles, right? You can flip it a few different ways. Yeah. But most men won't get there to their mid-30s, right? So, and then biologically, we're still at the peak of our fertility, whereas they're on the sharp decline fertility-wise. Yeah. So this thing is set up to be different, where I believe the best combination is a man who's a little older, because also you can esteem him more because he's a little wiser, he's lived life a little bit more, as opposed to a man who's your age. He's probably gonna be less mature than you as a woman. And so you're gonna always be like, dang, I feel like I'm dealing with my doggone little brother, or a son here. So if a man has a little more age and wisdom and experience, and a woman is a little younger and a little more time with fertility, and can also, I think the cooperation kind of thing works a little bit better. If you have a responsible, servant-oriented man, can't be a jerk who's trying to control you, it has to be the right kind of man. And then I think it's just that dynamic, but we have it all flipped where we're just like, I don't know what we're doing, man, but.
So you said, so you brought up the service-oriented man a few times. Yet a lot of men are raised to be kings, to be the leader. And the Western perspective of leadership clashes with the idea of servitude.
I like the way you said that, because ancient times, Eastern culture, a real king is going to be on the battlefield. They're going to be right out front. They're going to be willing to die for their folks. They're not just some tucked away guy who's, telling everybody what to do, but not getting their fingers dirty. No, that's not a real king. A real king will put it on the line. And for me, it's prophet, priest, and king. Prophet, priest, and king is what a man is designed to be, a real husband, a real father. So a prophet is someone who can have a vision, who can see things, can say, you know what, from a leadership standpoint, here's a higher paradigm, higher goal for me. Here's what God is saying. This is the way we need to go, and I'm going to lead us that way. And so it's kind of like getting the download for something higher and then being able to take that to your family. The priest is the reverse kind of direction. This is, my family has this need. My family, has these concerns. We have this higher goal or paradigm that we're trying to get to. But I also have to make sure the practical things every day for my family are good. So for me, that means I got to pray to God and say, God, can you help make sure that we're good? Or for anyone, if it's a higher paradigm, to just like be able to sit in space and be a caretaker, be empathetic to your family's needs and making sure that they're good, putting your needs last, right? So that's kind of where that servanthood comes in. So first, you're a servant to a higher objective or higher being yourself, and you're submitting to that on the prophet side. Then on the priest side, you're submitting to your family this way to say, hey, I'm going to make sure you're good, and I'll be sacrificial if I need to. As a business owner, saying, hey, my employees are going to get paid first before I get paid to make sure their households are good.
Every single time.
Every time, right? No hesitation, right? And that's the risk you take. But with that, you should be awarded the chance to make the final decision, and that's really all it is. And so it's multiple layers of submission for a man, not as many for a woman, but that one is essential because someone has to be the Supreme Court judge that is the tiebreaker. But it shouldn't just be this kind of, you're going to do what I say and blah, 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 and there's no sacrifice and there's no. And so then the king part, again, you can make those decisions, those final decisions as the king, but it's a sacrificial king.
So submission to a higher power, a higher cause, and then submission to the family, and then the willingness to sacrifice, the willingness to put it all on the line in order to advance what seems like the first two.
That's right, making decisions based on the higher goals and objectives and your family's needs, and weighing those out from a non-selfish place.
So where does that put the women in this dynamic then? Yeah,
so similar, because women can get it when they're parents. As a woman, you submit to your kids every single day, because you might not want to get out of bed, but you got to get them up and get them ready for school. You might not want to go to the toy store or go to this or that, but for your kids, you sacrifice. But also then, so you submit to them in terms of your personal thing, but then they need to submit to you in terms of authority and making final decisions, because
they as in the kids.
As in the kids, right? And it's easy when they're young, but then it becomes tough when they're 18, right? And they're still on your dime, and they're like, look, I'm an adult too. That's great.
I know everything.
And not only that, I'm still paying for everything. So until you can, I want to teach you how to make decisions for yourself, but until you have to own all of this, if you mess up, if you get into a car accident, if you flunk out of school, all these things that I'm going to own, until you can own that, you have to submit to my authority when we can't agree on things. I do respect you as an adult, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that's taking the responsibility. It's only right. And so the way people can think that people should take on all the responsibility, all of the risk, and not be able to make the final decision doesn't work. And that's all it is. And so this is one of those curse words. Submission. All it means is subordinating or reordering your thoughts and your priorities to the mission. The mission comes first, and I will put myself beneath the mission. If people cannot see that, they don't need to be married. They don't need to be in a relationship, because they haven't developed enough that interdependent mindset that says, this is bigger than just me and my needs. We're better together, but that together has to work in a system. And I don't know a company, a school, any structure out there that you could say everybody's the same and no one has final decision making. No one has any ranks. No one has any, like a flat, it never works. There's always a CEO, but hopefully there's a CEO who's, not going to be like the ones today, right? Who are selfish and don't care about their employees, but ones that will really put their folks first.
Yeah, Cuba and North Korea and all those communist paradises.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. So, what is the mission? Like, for the record.
For the record.
Yes.
Be more specific. There's so much you can go. So many places there.
So just now you said a few things like submission is giving yourself over to the mission and prioritizing it. So what is the mission that we are all meant to submit to?
Yeah, that's great. I think let's start with the ultimate building block of society, family, because we can narrow it there. It's one, to procreate, right? Be fruitful and multiply. And the whole point is, if you develop yourself to being a great person, great member of society, contributing person, you are in the best position to recreate and bring other people like you into this world, like-minded people. And if we have more people who are doing that, as opposed to the other way, where broken, toxic, don't have their stuff together people are bringing people in the world, then what happens? We get out of balance and we start having the world that we have now, where you got all these dysfunctional people compared to the people who are actually decent, and then the dysfunctional people make other people dysfunctional and broken, and then you end up, and that's why this is such an essential thing to get these things right, because we literally are the nuclear blocks of the world, and I believe I've come to realize the work I'm trying to do here is so essential because everything in the world depends on it. And when we get this wrong, we end up with the world that we have right now. So I believe that's the ultimate purpose. And the other purpose is to know your purpose and to make your purpose your priority. So most people don't move that way. They just go, I go make money, I go pick some job that helps me to make money, but you never find out, who are you? And it doesn't mean like your job has to be the only way you can walk in your purpose. Sometimes your job just gives you the money so you have room to do your purpose. But I think people are so much more fulfilled. They don't need all these other artificial things to give them this sense of value and enjoyment of life. And a lot of what they're doing is fighting this natural thing that's put on you where you're not going to feel well. You're going to have a lack of ease or dis-ease. You're going to be sick on some level when you're not walking in your purpose and you're not fulfilling who you're supposed to be. So family is part of it, but then everyone has an individual one. And I believe picking a partner is supposed to be about alignment of purposes, not she's hot, he's hot, we happen to meet each other, blah, blah, blah.
We can have some good looking babies.
We can have some good looking babies, right? Yeah, I wanted to make some jokes there, but yeah, it's not, and that's what we're taught. It's like, oh, this feeling, it's this, you just happen to, no, it's, what was it back in the day, man? There were whole countries decided based upon how people arrange things. Now, some of it maybe was a little too much, but guess what? It's way more, I think, that way than it is the whole just random, well, it's just who you fall in love with. Because you have to, it's a business at the end of the day. If you don't think it's a business, ask divorce attorneys, right? It's a business, right? This is like, you're right. And not just financially, but it's kingdom business, it's purpose, it's like your life work is dependent upon who you're with. Because even if you were with someone, even if they're not perfectly aligned with doing the same things, if they can at least maintain your peace and give you safety, and as a man, let us be focused, but we're not in the street trying to chase tail and losing distractions, and they could just make sure you have a warm meal here and there and some other things. Now I can really walk in my intentions the same way. And same for a woman, like if you're with a dude who can never let you feel safe and you're always just like, you can't be your real self. You can't be your genuine, feminine, nurturing, natural self. You're gonna be mad, you're gonna be angry because you're off balance all the time. Like, so I don't know, man. It seems very straightforward to me, but it seems like the world is totally at odds.
So, how do you feel about the pickup artist community then?
It's interesting. I love my journey because divorced now for 4 years, and I've learned a lot about all these things, and I've been at different phases and spaces, so I have no judgment for anybody. And growing up, I used to always think I need to have lines because I didn't really know how to talk to women. I was a reclusive guy. I'm way more outward now, but I'm an engineer and an IT guy. I'm a geek and a nerd. So there's always a reclusive part of me, and I used to be really shy when I was growing up. Grew out of it like just incrementally in stages. And so I coming back out, starting back over after being married for 21 years, and you come back into this world, this dating world, living in Washington, D.C., living in cities like Miami. Man, you have to have some A game out there because these are like, a lot of these Instagram models and whatever else, this is where they are. And so unless you have a ton of money or you're an athlete or whatever else, you better have a mouthpiece that's out of this world. You better have confidence. You better, kind of bring something. So, I think there's value in the standpoint of, I don't think how many women realize the majority of men are not really comfortable with approaching women, are not very confident, are really worried about getting shot down. It doesn't seem like that to women because they're approached by the same 20 to 30% of guys who are assertive, are aggressive, are these Chads and Tyrones that can make things happen. And they don't see the guys who, won't ever say anything to them and just will like them from afar. So I think there's some basic concepts and things that guys need to know, and they can get the confidence. But the whole thing to, again, do it just for the sake of getting some, or just kind of setting yourself up to essentially make it a one-directional thing, or even the score, because we know women are taking money from men, they're drink pimping, they're date pimping, all this kind of stuff. Like, it's just superficial, and you're not going to feel fulfilled over time. So understand the concepts, but anything where you're trying to scheme or manipulate people, I'm not here for it. Like, just be your real authentic self, and you will be able to get results. But I think those results, another societal thing is, as a man, instead of just video games, is how many notches can I get on my belt? And that gives me esteem as a man, that I was able to knock down this many baddies, this, really? You don't have a little bit more substance to, but that's where we are now. And for a lot of guys, okay, yeah, you work, and then you just get your weight up that way, and it's volume,
So learn the skills of pickup artistry, but don't be a pickup artist for the sake of being a pickup artist.
Yeah.
Okay.
And leave the toxic ones alone, leave the manipulative ones alone. Understand, I do really believe that it's so important for men, especially nowadays, to understand women's psychology. And that's where we're at a big deficit, because women are way more emotionally intelligent in general. They study relationships, they talk to each other, they learn these things at a much earlier age, and so they're way further ahead. And so this whole red pill community, right, is really coming out of the fact that so many men, like myself, you didn't realize, like, man, women can really be running some game on you on ways that you never thought, because you're just straightforward. You're just like, it's just this and that. And, so we need that. We need that, and I think we even need that to just, even with good women, to make sure we can hold them accountable, and that we can let them know, like, hey, look, no, we're not doing that. And a lot of women nowadays won't really respect you if you don't have that kind of game and savvy, and you won't even get to that kind of second level unless you understand it. So there's a place for some of this. It's just, it becomes toxic after a while.
I was hanging out with this woman about a couple months ago, and she told me how she's a bartender, right? So like take home $25-30 a year after taxes, right? Mm-hmm. She told me how she was able to wrangle 5 dudes in Europe, like one after another, and through that combination of all 5 of them, she was able to get an all expenses paid trip across Europe.
Wow.
Food paid for.
Wow.
Trip paid for. Hotels paid for. And they're not staying at like motels. Mm-hmm. They're at like the 110th floor, Pent Suite, like lobster, escargot, like
wow,
like bottles of Blue Label, like just going crazy.
The life.
So like when and I asked her, like, how many of those guys did you give it up to? Mm-hmm. Guess how many guys she gave it up to?
Maybe 1. 0.
She gave it up to none of those 5 guys, but there were other guys she met on the trip.
See what I'm saying?
That she did give it up to. And she says, yeah, those 5 guys, they were kind of upset, but it didn't bother her.
Wow, bro. That's interesting. I'm not surprised. I hear these kind of stories. Now that one, to string it along like that and to like go from this one to this one, and
I wasn't sure if I was impressed or shocked or...
It's all of it.
I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, you have to like, to be able to finesse on that level, like you got some game, I'm sure there's some better ways to apply that.
Yeah, like she actually, and she told me like she has like a whole spreadsheet of like guys, and she ranks them like where they live, how much money they make, what they do.
Wow.
And she said she can travel anywhere in the world completely paid for. And she's bad. I'm talking about like Kim at her prime, right?
I figured that. I mean,
she
no
was
matter how much
bad.
game, you're gonna just have to be a knockout.
Yeah, she was like 20, early mid 20s, like at the top of her game. And then I asked her, like, well, what are your plans when you're 33? She said, I don't know.
Yep. Get on the Ask Andre channel and start asking what good men. No shade to y'all who asked that, but facts is. Wow, dude, that's crazy.
So when you tell me that women can finesse men and they don't even know, like, I can guarantee you, like, these guys, like, when they paid for it, they thought they were getting lucky. They thought they were flexing on her when it was the other way around.
Yeah. And
it's kind of sad when you see, like, men who you would think have their shit together, because paying for a trip from America to Europe, that's not cheap. And
bro, it's and this is where it's getting really ugly, because back in the day it used to be a thing where I won't take certain things, not that I don't like it, not that I don't appreciate the gesture, but I understand if I take this, what comes with it. Right, that there's a certain obligation level that comes with it. You take expensive gifts, then you're basically signing up for someone. Not to say you're obliged, but
there's an expectation.
There's an expectation.
Yeah,
and we've just lost the whole concept of reciprocity. So this is what I'm saying. Everyone's getting into this scarcity. I got to just go get mine. Someone else did this to me, or I learned from someone else on how to be a scammer, on how to blah blah blah. And there's just no ethics, there's no value, they don't see any esteem in pouring into someone else and doing things the right way. And it's just really, really sad. But the problem is they don't have the models. In fact, they have the models the other way. And then they got teachers on YouTube and Instagram, and because they're so thirsty for this lifestyle, it's like, I'll take whatever cheat code and shortcut to get it, instead of just, and really, what are they looking for? I want to feel happy. I want to feel like I'm enjoying it. And they don't know how to do that with realer things. So they have to take this artificial, this matrix world and do it. And the levels that it gets to now, it's just, to your point, I mean, it's bananas. But this is where, going back to what we just talked about, this is where the red pill community is so important. Because there's some ways that some checks and balances here that we can make this better. So if, as men, we're on the no free attention tribe, we're on the no simping tribe, we're on the you need to earn me spending this amount of money, I need to know that we're moving in certain directions. And so I'm not gonna just off top take you over to Paris to just try to flex. I don't care how fine you are. Like, we can start this thing off for a walk in the park, coffee, whatever, and then I can go to building up from there. I'm not saying it has to be that, but I'm just saying if you have these sort of expectations and kind of set those boundaries as men and are not trying to just buy people, instead, like, listen, I'm that dude. I hope you can see it, but if you can't, no problem. But I'm not gonna overpay to try to sell you, who I am. And then for women, and especially for women, they're the gatekeepers of relationships, people even starting to talk to each other, starting to date, going out on dates. They're the gatekeepers of that and sex. So guess what, women? You are a big part of the solution or the problem in terms of how many bad men there are. A lot of why there's so many bad men out here, because they're not incentivized to be good. If they can get the same results, if there's a bunch of women who are going to give it up and they don't have to show anything, they don't have to show that they're honest, they don't have to demonstrate that they're responsible, all they have to do is look good and have some swag, buy a couple drinks, and they're smashing, then guess what? A lot of men will just work on their skills on working that part instead of working real skills of being a man. And so, and women have to own the fact that they choose a lot of bad men, and they put a lot of incentive for men to be in these tracks that aren't going to meet their ultimate need of security. And then what do they end up with? A whole big pool of men who aren't really good for much because they're able to get results without having to put in the work and produce.
There's going to be a lot of young women who are going to hear that story of what that woman did. Like a lot of 15-year-old girls, they're going to hear what that 25-year-old did, and they're not going to hear what you just said about like the lack of value, lack of morals. They're going to hear all expenses paid trip. They're going to hear fancy wine. They're going to hear penthouse suite.
Yeah.
So what's the solution here then? Because and I'm going to be blunt.
Yeah.
The message that you're selling, I agree with it 100%.
Yeah.
But the problem is, it's not a sexy message.
Yeah.
It's not a sexy message.
Right? It's way out here.
Like men don't want to hear go to work 50, 60-hour work weeks, hustle hard, develop skills, because in your 20s you're worthless compared to a man in their 30s and 40s who've put in the time. Men don't want to hear that. They want to hear, how do I get the $1 million right now? How do I get the Lambo right now?
Yep.
That's what they're focused on. Women are, and young women, they're focused on, again, like, how do I get this man to buy me things? Because earlier you said, men, like first date, don't wine and dine them. Let's go for a walk in the park. Let's go to a coffee shop. As a young woman who's in the prime of her sexual life, and she's got dudes coming up at her. This dude's gonna take her to a park. This dude's gonna take her to Burns Steakhouse.
Yeah.
Where's she gonna go? There, because that's the sexier option. So I'm gonna ask for you to do for me right now is, how do we make our message sexy? Yeah,
that's great. So the first thing is, I think the first thing you have to do is just be transparent and be honest with things like that. Like, some of this isn't sexy, some of this isn't, and I think we sugarcoat a lot of stuff. We have to just help people to know, we can do it with, education and some other things, and people can kind of get it there. But even there, of course, if there's a corner they can cut. I think the other part is there's not enough dialogue. There's not enough people on the back end of this thing talking about where it's gotten them. So as an example, Brittany Renner, right now she's kind of she's changing her tune a lot. Like, I'm working on myself. She's kind of shifting from all these things she was preaching on social media because shot clock and and she's trying to present a different thing. And maybe, I don't know people, so I just give people a little credit. Maybe she has changed and learned some things the hard way. Well, she needs to go back and undo a lot of those lessons that she was teaching women on how to finesse dudes and all this kind of stuff, and really be intentional to say, let me tell you, 6, 7, 10 years down the line, this ain't pretty. And when your body count is way out here and you're trying to be with a quality dude, he's not going to look at you the way that you're going to really want him to look at you when you made these choices when you're younger. So I think if young people hear from people who are not ancient about the reality and the consequences of these short-sighted choices, and you talk to them things like, a lot of people still know they want to have kids, they want to do whatever, they just can't project forward how the choices they're making are interfering with some of these long-term goals that they have. So people have to kind of walk that back and make that clear for them, I think is the biggest thing. And then for men, I think, it's hard to, get men from taking the shortcut, but I think there's certain movements like the Passport Bro movement, as an example, is one of those places where it's misunderstood because people just obviously want to not be accountable for the fact that there are a lot of bad things, values and traits that are happening here in Western modern society versus the rest of the world that hasn't been hit by the matrix as much, that's making men want to look other places. So movements like that, while there are some men who are just looking for even shorter cuts with women who, I think the majority, and a lot of the men I've talked to, and I used to be one myself, are looking, when you want a quality woman, it is harder to find it, a woman who will honor you, these sort of things. So now we even have young guys who are doing some of this because we have some guys who are presenting like, hey, I want a wife, I want kids, but I don't want all this toxic stuff. So there's a chance for them to hear it from guys who are able to, you can't travel abroad unless you level up some, right? Mm-hmm. You got to make money to go have the plane ticket to go over there. You got to have your stuff together to even navigate some of these things. I mean, you can't get a passport if you've got, a prison record. So like there are a lot of these aspects to even talk to these other women, you have to have your stuff together. And then when you can be around women who aren't on all these games, then I think you can realize, I waste so much time and energy just chasing women, doing all this stuff. It'd be so much easier and better if I just had one woman who was good to me, I was good to her, and it just worked. So I think we just have to have some alternative approaches, to your point, to like bring these paradigms home in a way that resonates.
So sell men on leveling themselves up, because when they do level up, they'll have options of a lot more women, but choose the single woman and then sell women on the idea that on chasing after that high value man that only wants one woman instead of a body count.
And that he probably looks a little different than what you perceive, or what I call is the Hollywood effect, the Chris Brown effect, where you've been trained to really only value and esteem men who can make you laugh. So women are like, oh, I don't want much. 6 feet tall, fit. Oh, and he can make me laugh. And they don't. Everything they're describing is a professional athlete, an actor, or a singer or rapper. And where do you think you got that from? Hollywood has, like back in the day, it was like, oh, women love Elvis or this, and it was kind of like, but then they still went and married the good guy down the street because their moms can kind of keep them. But now we're so saturated with these images, and now I believe so many women from a young age and on up are just kind of convinced that, well, I'm not he's lame. I'm not. Well, guess what? Men aren't necessarily here to just be your entertainers. We're here to be your providers, protectors, and to lead, to do these different things, these sacrificial leadership. And people don't get that. So like if you would ask women, what are traits of a man that I want? Leadership will probably not be on the list for a lot of women, and they don't think about that. But the number one thing is, if you want a man who's reliable, that you can depend on, how many leaders are not reliable? To be a leader, you have to be reliable enough for yourself and for other people, right? But we're chasing this paradigm, this matrix paradigm of this is what an ideal man is, and then 50% of the men are kind of just getting look past, or they're like the lady you talked about. They're the ones who pay for all these trips, do all this stuff, and the other dude who does absolutely nothing, right?
So you've brought up the Matrix a few times. What is the Matrix? Who is the Matrix?
Yeah.
And where did it start?
I was hoping. No, this is always the hard question. I use that term because it's one that people can relate to. And first, it's more of a paradigm in terms of thinking, because that's really what it is. It's like there's reality and thinking that will align with reality and great results in reality. And then there's the matrix paradigm, which is a false reality, which has us thinking, this is great, I'm feeling all of this stuff, right? Because when they're in the matrix, right, in the movie, in their minds, it was the same. It tastes like chicken, and they experience sex, all this kind of stuff, but really they're in this broken setup, and when you realize it, it's kind of too late, and you're just like, man, I'm just getting the life sucked out of me. And for me, having the life sucked out of you is not walking in your purpose, because life is short, and we only can live for so long. So our most valuable resource is time. So if you're wasting your time here on earth doing anything other than what you are here to do, you're literally giving up your energy and your life. So even if you don't want to get into conspiratorial, which I hate that term, conspiracy theory, because it automatically triggers people. So you don't even have to talk about, is it the devil? Is it Illuminati? Is it the government? Is it deep state? People, rich people, whatever, the boogeyman. And I'm not saying that to say those entities aren't real. They're very real. They're very real. But it doesn't even matter who you want to put it on or pin it on, and everybody has a different thing. The reality is, if you're not being true to yourself, if you're not walking in the fullness of your life, if you're not walking your purpose, and you're just cheating yourself, and you're never just cheating yourself, because everyone's purpose is to also bless other people and to help other people. So if you don't have your life together, guess what? Your kids, who you may not even have because you want some selfish stuff, or if you have them, they don't thrive the way they should. Or the people who you were supposed to influence. The interview you were supposed to have with somebody where you actually had some thoughts to say never happens because you're too busy taking free trips in Europe and using up some of your best resources as a woman, your youth and your beauty and all those things, and wasting it. But you think you're winning, but ultimately when you hit 38 and you don't quite get as many trip offers, and you want to have a kid and guys don't take you seriously because your body count or whatever else, and then you're complaining and saying, well, man, this world is messed up. We have to be accountable for our own choices. And I am at least able to say it's not all people's fault, because we're programmed to do a lot of the wrong things. People are programmed to eat unhealthy foods. And that nutrition may not hit you right now, but years from now, it's going to pick up same thing with life things and relationships.
Gotcha. So we've identified a lot of the problems, a lot of the symptoms, we've gone over some of the causes.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone over what the solution looks like. What is the, for most people, what is the very first basic step to work towards that solution? What is the first easiest thing or things that they can do to start working towards a better world for themselves, their future family, their future kids?
Great question. I think it's getting good information, right? It's listening to interviews like this. The internet, it's like money, right? It could either be the root of all evil or it could be such a positive thing. Mm-hmm. And so while we get fed a lot of bad things, we have access to so much good information, more than we've ever had before. So find out who the people who are giving healthy, good information and feed on it and consistently feed to combat what you're getting on the other side.
Yeah, but those people get canceled.
Yeah, they do. or they don't have all the views, so you're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you know what? The good thing is there's always somebody else popping up, right? And so now that's the best part about this system is that you're not dependent on 3 or 4 channels. Again, they're channeling information, channeling your spirit in different ways to move you. You have all sorts of outlets. But yeah, they get to a certain point, they do get canceled, but guess what? You probably could have downloaded a lot of the episodes and other people take their content. Kevin Samuels, perfect example.
Rest in peace, the legend.
R.I.P. Kevin Samuels. Still, people, I kind of hate it as a content creator. I like it because more people can still catch it, but I hate it when people are just lazy and just literally take someone else's work and thoughts and just put it out there and get 1 million views or whatever. But nonetheless, the content is still there for people, even though, he's moved on. Andrew Tate, same thing, like get canceled, but yet it's not like you can't find him or whatever else. And sometimes it becomes a badge of honor. Now you get even more shine because you've been canceled. So you could always counter those things. But the second thing after developing and getting good information and kind of renewing your mind is getting healed. I feel like 80 to 90% of people have experienced trauma, and people of color and people who have been in disenfranchised neighborhoods. Just by living, you've gone through it, but let alone family situations, relationships, all these things. And our brains are very fragile. You will literally rewire your brain through trauma. Your chemistry will change. Like I'm a person who had to find that out the hard way myself, and I've gone through a lot of work. And it humbled me because I'm like, wow, I didn't know this thing that happened to me at this age. I thought I was pretty normal. I thought I was pretty natural. Yeah, my parents got divorced, but my dad's always been in my life. And I've been blessed. I went to a top engineering school. I've been a consultant. But still, there were a lot of things that were altering me from being my best. And I think people don't really recognize how much it affects them. And they call it emotions for reasons, because you electronically sending signals to your brain to move you to things that would be the right thing, but you can't really control. You have a proclivity over here. You wonder why you keep picking the same bad guy over here, because you haven't dealt with something over here that is making you do that. Deal with it. So I always talk about education, development, and then emotional and mental health. And then from there, start walking out some of those things. And don't be afraid to fail, but that's where you can't just be cerebral here. You got to go out and kind of test it, and that's how you can really know it's the right information, is when you see the results and the fruit over time.
I think it's people's relationship to pain is messed up.
Talk about that.
I feel like a lot of people, we're taught to avoid pain. If this hurts, don't go there. Don't go play on the streets because you might scrape your knee. And there's some wisdom to that. You don't want to play in the street and get hit by a car. That's a lot of pain.
Yeah.
But at the same time, to your point, pain, doing difficult things is where you grow. That's where you figure out the laws of the universe. And we're taught to kind of chase good feelings. Which is no different than chasing a drug, chasing a high. We're chasing, chase what makes you happy.
Yep.
Man, fuck that.
No.
Happiness is fleeting. It is temporary. It's just, happiness is just your brain pumping dopamine into your system.
That's right. It's empty at the end of the day.
It's empty, because you're gonna wake up tomorrow and you might feel like crap, which is natural. But then we're taught to avoid that. And when we spend our entire lives avoiding pain, we don't properly grow, and that's how we become traumatized. Because you can go through pain I firmly believe it's possible to go through difficult things without being traumatized. It is difficult. I'm going to anger a lot of people when I say this, but I want to say that it's possible to survive a situation like North Korea or Auschwitz and not be, and you're going to come out cut up, but it's up to you to decide whether or not you get scarred. And I want to say that it is possible to go through those things without being scarred. And I say that as someone who has not been through those things.
Sure, I appreciate what you're saying.
But it's kind of like, I have to believe that it's possible to heal.
That's right.
And that's the reason why I take that perspective.
Yeah.
Because if you believe that those things can permanently scar you, then you're also going to believe that everything can permanently scar you.
Yep.
And that's just not a thought process that I can afford to have.
Yeah.
Everybody can heal from everything.
I love that. And I love that you say that. And I think we have to hear that. And I think it's important for us to understand you can't get away from trauma, drama, negative things. This world is not what this is. This is wrong world. Sorry, not this life. That's just no getting around it. And again, for me, from a faith-based standpoint, Jesus Christ, he went through it, right? So this is God who's perfect and in control, and he went through it. Why would you think you're not going to? That's not what this is. Maybe, based on your belief systems, this is the trial ground. This is to see what choices you make and who you are and who you want to align yourself with. And then the next life, maybe you can get there. But this one, no, it's not that. But look at the word restoration. There's two real parts to it. I like to say oration, like what you said, you're speaking something, you're speaking life, you're speaking the fact that I don't have to stay a victim. I don't have to stay traumatized. I can't control that it happened to me, but I can heal from it. I can be restored. And it's orating rest. I'm going to say that I will be able to rest from this situation, rest from that pain, rest from all the symptoms that come with it. I can speak life, but it is going to take some work. It's like working out. You're not going to get muscles by just passively doing what you want to do. You're not going to get the good massage work, the deep tissue work to get down to that bone level where you got to work that thing out to get the release that you have to have. It just doesn't work that way. And to your point, we're trained to not want that because we think we want the microwave, we think we want the quick fix, but when you look at it, the quick fix doesn't get you where you want over the long term. McDonald's is great, man, but that quick meal, where does it end up, right? More pain, more struggle, more right, and some love handles there, right? So if people can stop being so short-sighted and look longer term and say, you know what, this sucks. Okay, it sucks as a business owner to build your business. It sucks. I'm going through it again right now with my second business. It's a nonprofit, but in the long run, it's the best thing ever because I can have more control of my time. I can have more impact. I can walk in purpose. I can do all these things, but you have to pay. My dad used to always say, you can pay now, you can pay later, but you will pay. And I add, when you pay later, there's always interest and fees.
100%. Closing statements?
This has been awesome. Love it. Love to do it with you again. I think we hit a lot of stuff, but there's so much more for us to cover.
There's so much more.
I really want to make sure when we come back next time, we got to talk more about Eastern versus Western culture because I love to pick your brain and know more about your heritage and kind of what it was like for your family and share my experiences. And so, yeah, man, thank you. This has been great.
If you could have someone who's watching this made it to the end, if they take just one thing out of this conversation, what should it be?
Understand those 4 essential needs of men and women. And then know that if you want to have a healthy, sustaining relationship, that you need to have someone who's willing to give you that and you're willing to give that. And then understand that we need to be healed, whole, and healthy, emotionally, spiritually, all those things. And that we need to develop and make development and learning a part of it. And relationships require that. You cannot have a healthy relationship without those things being in place. So if you want it and you want the fruits, that's the route to get there.
Where can people find out more about you, or how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm on a bunch of platforms. I'm most active on TikTok. So that's Ask Andre Channel. Also, it's Ask Andre Channel on YouTube and on Instagram. I'm just getting going there. And then I also have a Spotify that's just Ask Andre, where I have 30-minute, 40-minute podcasts teaching deeply these concepts like honor and different family concepts that really get taught out here. So I'm enjoying it. This is not my main thing. I make zero money off of this, and I don't plan to make any money. Whatever money I start to make, I'm gonna use it to probably give away counseling time for people to go to counselors. So this is purely for the love of the game, because I know we need it. You know, families are just being devastated every single day, and they're being devastated before they're even formed. So I'm just trying to do my humble part, pay it forward. I've gone through my struggles. Divorce is ugly. It's death. I don't wish it on anybody. And I just think we suffer for a lack of knowledge. Most of us don't get taught these things by our parents. We don't see the right examples. So I'm just trying to do my part to put some good information out there.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. The lowest I've been able to get these two was to about